Boro picked up a huge win midweek that potentially saved Michael Carrick's job, but it'll only be worth it if we back it up this weekend. What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Project Boro Preview Show, the series on the channel where we, of course, preview every single Boro game. And today we look ahead to Boro's next game at home on Saturday when Derby County come to the Riverside. And it is just as big of a game as any of the others have been in recent times. For Boro, of course, we stopped the rot midweek. We got a huge win over Stoke City, Boro's first win in 6, ending our worst run of defeats under Michael Carrick. However, even if that was, and we believe strongly, it probably was the game that depended on his job and whether he was still Boro manager or not, it has kept him in the job for now, but he still needs to back it up with a victory this weekend against a Derby side who are absolutely in awful form. They've just been in free fall since Boxing Day. We'll get into it, of course, in a little bit more detail shortly. But for Boro, we have to do something that we've only done on 3 separate occasions this season, and that is win games back to back. We've only done it in 2 separate spells. We had West Brom and Stoke, the back-to-back wins at the very start of the season. It might have been in October, September time, and then in November, obviously we beat Luton, QPR and Oxford 4-5 and 6. But since then, Boro have not backed up a win with another victory, and that inconsistency has cost us massively, and it's why we find ourselves in the position that we are. And there's a number of reasons as to why Boro are where they are, but we can put a lot of them right this weekend. Home form is another, conceding goals is another, failing to beat sides we should beat is another. Not too long ago, Cardiff came to the Riverside, who weren't far from where Derby are now, and we failed to beat them. So even with Boro getting back to winning ways and Derby's form being horrendous, this is still a big game, and it's still one I think Boro have to win. It's all well and good saying we're back on track, we've won a game midweek, but if we were to drop points against this Derby side, I think Michael Carrick is right back in the predicament he was in only a few days ago. He's not out the woods yet. It is imperative we back up the Stoke win here, because if we don't, it's completely meaningless, and, well, the pressure piles back on Michael Carrick again. It's as simple as that. So let's hope that Boro's season can get back on track here, and I'm going to be brutally honest, like Stoke in midweek, this is a perfect opportunity for Boro to get themselves back-to-back wins, because Derby have been shocking for a very, very long time now. It's a golden opportunity for Boro to really put their foot down, get another good result at home, ease the pressure on the manager, bring a little bit more of a positive vibe back to the Riverside, get rid of some of that toxicity that has been rife over the last few games, especially at home. It's the perfect tonic to hopefully get things moving back towards a more positive direction. So anyway, let's look at Derby County then, because, as I say, they are in torrid form, and I'm surprised in a sense, because at the start of the season I did have concerns that they'd go down because they had Paul Warne as manager and his record in the Championship has never been great. But getting towards November time, I felt pretty confident they'd be okay. They just looked solid at home and that they'd get enough away from home. I just felt like they would just have enough, and they'd definitely be 3 teams worse than them in the Championship this season. But since Boxing Day, their form has been utterly, utterly woeful, and it's led to them sitting second bottom in the Championship League table. They are in the drop, 4 points from safety, 7 wins, 8 draws, 19 defeats, the second most in the league, only behind the team directly below them being Luton Town, who have 20. They've scored 33 goals, conceded 47, and they've not won since Boxing Day. That is a very long time, with a lot of games that they failed to win, as well as, I believe, going out in the FA Cup to Leyton Orient, who I think might be a League 1 or League 2 side. That's a poor result in itself in the domestic cup competitions, but as well as that, they've lost 9 of their last 11 championship games, drawing the other 2. That's 2 points from what? A possible 33? It's atrocious form, and surely it's got to be the worst in the league in that period. Maybe joint with Luton, I don't quite know, but yeah, 2025 has been a woeful year if you're a Derby County supporter. The 2 draws, the 2 single points they've picked up in 2025, one came with a draw away to Norwich, which isn't a bad result to be fair, getting a point at Carrow Road. The other came slightly more recently with a 0-0 draw at home to Oxford. But yeah, their current form and run is dire. And when it comes to visiting the Riverside, they're not great away from home either. As well as poor form in general, they've only won once on the road all season. That single win came against Coventry at the CBS at the start of November. Since, they've lost 6 of their last 9 away games, leaving them 22nd in the away league table. Only Luton and Plymouth, who we all know are well-documented, dreadful teams away from home, have a worse record than Derby. So they're pretty bad all round. They're pretty bad on the road. Their form this year has been shocking. Surely Boro can find a result quite easily in this one. Of course, though, they have just brought in John Eustace, which was a shock of an appointment. You know, leaving Blackburn, I think there seems to be a lot more to it than him moving to a team that are miles beneath Blackburn in the table with completely different aspirations. I think there was a lot going on behind the scenes there at Blackburn, and only John Eustace will know the true details as to why he chose to move. But so far, it's been a pretty disastrous start for him. The one away trip he's had since he became Derby boss was a 4-0 defeat at QPR, where they were absolutely dreadful, and they lost 1-0 at home to Millwall late on at the weekend. So in the 2 games that Eustace has had in charge, they've lost them both at a total aggregate score of 5-0, and Derby have not scored in any of their last 3 games. So it's not been a good start for John Eustace, but we've seen him get victories over Boro so far this season. He's beaten the Riverside twice already this season with Blackburn in League and Cup, and he picked up 1-0 wins on both occasions. So, even though Derby themselves aren't playing well, they've not started well under John Eustace, he is a manager who potentially knows the formula to finding a way of beating Boro at the Riverside. Delving into Derby's numbers then, both offensively and defensively, they're a very, very poor attacking outfit. They're not so bad defensively, but they let themselves massively down going forwards. They're 22nd, and you'll find they're 22nd for a lot of things. They're joint 22nd, should I say, for goals scored. They're joint with Hull City at the moment as the second worst attack in the Championship. Only Luton Town, again, are worse off than Derby, scoring 31 goals. So they're one of the worst attacks that you'll see. That's matched up by their XG, which pretty much is bang on with the goals they've scored. They're 22nd again, pretty much bang on the XG that they're expected to have gotten this season. 34 XG, 33 goals scored, pretty much where you'd expect them to be. And again, only 2 teams in the Championship have a worse record than them. This time, Oxford and Plymouth. They are the only 2 teams who've created less high-quality chances than Derby in the Championship this season. Talking of 22nd, I say they love being 22nd for metrics and stats this season. They're 22nd for shots on target, 22nd for big chances, 22nd for big chances missed. You get the picture. Derby are a side who struggle going forwards, do not create much. And I don't know about if it's the same under Eustace, but I recall in every Championship roundup video I would do, especially under Paul Warne, whenever Derby were away from home, they barely ever created anything. And the games to which they did pick up away points from, they'd score from their one only opportunity, or one of their only 2 big opportunities in the whole game. So they have been, I guess, fairly clinical away from home at times this season. They've had to be because they've not created enough on the road, but that pairs up with their away record being pretty damn bad. And the only joy really, under Paul Warne again at least, was coming from set plays and long balls and crosses. That was their biggest threat, and we'll talk more about that when we look at them as a team. But yeah, going forward, well, again, I say this with a slight caution. If Boro do the basics at the back, we should be able to keep this Derby side out quite easily. Again, I say that through gritted teeth because this is Middlesbrough Football Club we're talking about. However, in slightly more positive numbers, Derby's defence isn't actually as bad. Going forward, yet they're a bottom three side. Not so much defensively. Now, they're still down there for goals conceded. They've got the 17th worst defence in the Championship, or the 17th in terms of keeping the goals out. They've conceded 47 goals this season, but there's still a canny few teams that are worse than that, and they've only conceded one more goal than Boro this season, which tells you exactly how bad our defence has been. But they've massively underperformed at the back, because when it comes to their XG against and the number of chances they've actually gave up in games, they're mid-table. They're a mid-table side for the number of chances and the quality of chances they give up. When it comes to their XG against, they're 13th, so they're just inside the top half for XG against. And their XG against stands at 40.9, and they've conceded 47. So they've underperformed by almost 7 goals, or just over 6 goals, when it comes to their XG against. So they should have conceded far less than what they have done, but they have, and that has definitely let them down, albeit, as I say, they still do not have a very bad defence at all. It's mid to lower, mid-table, I would say. It's going forwards where they really, really struggle. Now, looking at Derby's team, again, this early into John Eustace's tenure, I don't really expect, or I'm not really certain of what we're going to get. It would be quite understandable if his team changed significantly from their last defeat against Millwall and the big defeat away to QPR prior to that. He's still finding his feet, so it's very difficult to predict what his team might do. And some of the numbers you look at when it comes to Derby as a team might not be as relevant because, again, most of them, or the majority of the numbers and the data you see when looking at Derby is from their time under Paul Warne. So predicting what this John Eustace Derby side might look like, it's difficult because they're still evolving in their very infancy under him. But just overall, as a side this season, I see Derby, as I mentioned earlier, 4-2-3-1. They're not a very creative side, especially on the road. I think a lot of their joy will come from set pieces. I can see them doing what a lot of teams have done at the Riverside this season, and I don't blame them if they do this. They'll just sit back. They'll sit back, defend, soak up pressure, allow Boro the ball, and I think they'll try and get joy either on the counter or they'll try and get joy from set pieces. That is probably the only area where I'm slightly worried from this Derby side, and that is their ability to threaten Boro from set pieces. So that is something we definitely have to be very, very wary of. But in terms of possession, they're not a very good side. You know, they're 22nd, again, shock for average possession. So they're happy without the ball. They don't have much of the ball in games, and their pass accuracy is really, really low. The number of accurate passes they make is really low, but they're quite high on long balls, and they're really, really high in the top 4 for accurate crosses in the Championship. So that, again, goes back to the idea that when they get the ball, they're not going to try and play through Boro. They'll boot it long, try and get up the pitch, win set plays, and get joy from there. So it won't be pretty, but it could frustrate Boro. They could set up to very much frustrate Boro, and even with us winning in midweek, it won't take much to frustrate this Boro side and turn the place slightly toxic, slightly edgy. I think that's definitely something I'd do if I was John Eustace going into this game. I would tell my Derby team to sit deep and frustrate, because even though Boro have got back to winning ways, this is still a home side that has struggled massively, and a home crowd that at this moment in time could turn quite quickly on Boro if they don't start well against a side we're expected to beat. So for me, if I'm him, frustrate, sit back, make the game scrappy, make it a fight. defend well, and try and take your opportunities from set plays. And I think they still definitely have a chance of getting something against Boro. In terms of individuals, again, putting a certainty on specific individuals playing, hard to do at this point under Eustace, but there are a few names in there you'll recognise, one especially at the back, Matt Clark, of course, a defender we let go in January to go back to Derby. It would be Sod's Law. He has a worldie when he returns to the Riverside. I think, he's a very good defender, one I rate incredibly highly, so he is a player that I'm sure will be desperate to make a point with him leaving for what we believe is a lack of game time. So he'll be wanting to prove to Michael Carrick that he made a mistake not playing him. And with our injury crisis at the back now, we could really do with Matt Clark right now, which is a little bit ironic, isn't it? In terms of the midfielders, I remember when I saw Ozor, I think it is, David Ozor at the start of the season. He was a player I really liked when we went to Pride Park on the second game of the season. He looked like a really good young prospect. There are another few, I'd say, journeyman championship players in the team. They're just there to do a job in the championship. They don't stand out, but they've been around the block. Caden Jackson is one. Jerry Yates is probably their best player at the moment. He certainly is via the numbers. He's their top goal scorer with 7 goals. Their top goal contributor by a mile with 10. Their best assister is Mendes Lang, who did have a spell at Boro a few years back. He's got the most assists with 4. So there aren't any attacking numbers that stand out to me there in this Derby team. So as I say, we should be okay if we do the basics right going backwards. And I do think with our creative players, we should also have joy going up against Derby. It depends on how much they frustrate and what sort of a game they turn this into. And that turns me towards Boro's team. Now, over the last few weeks, I've predicted back 5s, back 3s. I've had every other combination possible at the back, the front 4, yada, yada, yada. But for me, it's simple this week. Do not change a winning team. Unless there are enforced injuries, which there are in some areas, Carrick would be crazy if he was to change this Boro side. It's the first 11 that has won a game in over a month. It's the first front 4 I've seen in a long time that clicked and looked really dynamic and functioned well and was sharp and was creative. The midfield picks itself, and we don't have any depth in defence now either for that to pick itself either. So it's pretty straightforward for me. Travers is in goal. The back 4 is the only back 4 we can field unless magically Rav and or Edmondson are back to full fitness for this one, which might be the case, but as it stands, this is all Boro have. Left back, okay, we could choose between Borges and Giles, but I think Borges is currently going through his best spell at Boro so far. He's been brilliant in the last few games and definitely deserves to keep his place. We're going to have to put Ayling alongside Dale Fry because Boro are out of centre-backs, something we've mentioned a lot since Boro's January window come to its conclusion. Very, very low in depth at the back, and we've been bitten on the arse when it comes to that now because we've lost 2 centre-backs and now we're down to only Dale Fry. That's caused Ayling to have to come in, which now means that the depth at right back is also depleted, meaning Dijksdale, despite being in pretty shaky form, I will say, probably has to start again. So the back 4, back 5 picks itself, as does the midfield too with Hackney and Morris, and you go with exactly the same front 4 that I thought did really well in midweek. Azaz and Whittaker, I know I've put Azaz on the left, but them two are just as good as playing in each other's positions and rotating around, but playing them two and getting their chemistry working is important. I thought Marcus Force was brilliant, and it'd be great to see him on the right-hand side again. And Tommy Conway has to start because he's got the best goals penalty in the league, and he scores goals. So a straightforward Boro 11 for me, unchanged, unless you have to keep it as it finished against Stoke City. And then we move on to the head-to-head, which, again, positive reading for Boro. A lot of positivity in this video. It's absolutely fantastic because since 2010, Boro have had the edge over Derby County in call competitions and especially in the league. Boro have 10 wins to Derby's 7 with 6 draws between the two sides. Boro have struggled at Pride Park, but equally Derby have struggled at the Riverside. Their last win at the Riverside came all the way back in 2017. Since then, they've came to the Riverside on 4 occasions and failed to win in each of them, with 2 wins for Boro and 2 draws. And our 2 victories came in our 2 most recent home games against Derby, and they were quite comprehensive as well. We beat them 3-0 in 2020, and we beat them 4-1 in 2022. So it's not been a happy hunting ground for Derby in recent years, and we're hoping that that will be the case once again, which leads me on to finishing with my prediction. And I'm delighted to finally be finishing these previews with a positive prediction. I can't remember the last time I predicted Boro to win, but as you guys know, I'm always level-headed, I'm always unbiased, I give my honest prediction, but I do think we'll win. I think we'll back up our win against Stoke this weekend with another victory. I'd like a clean sheet. I think it would be great for Mark Travis to get that clean sheet. It might be his first, in a Boro shirt since he joined. But with Derby's poor attack, their form being absolutely atrocious, and their inability to score, and their ability to concede, it surely is also up for Boro to use the confidence we've surely gained from the Stoke win to give the home fans a desperately needed home victory, which would just ease the mood around the place, ease the pressure on Michael Carrick, and hopefully the volume around his job will quieten slightly, and it just backs up the win against Stoke and gives Boro very, very rare back-to-back victories, and it keeps Carrick in a job. As I say, if we don't win, I don't see why we're not back to where we were previous to Stoke, and he probably will get kept on again, but then suddenly the pressure piles back on again for the following game, which is down at Swansea. So just to continually ease the pressure and get things moving in the right direction, momentum, positivity, a win here would be absolutely awesome. And I'd like to think, especially now I've seen the front 4 playing as well as they did in midweek, we will have too much for Derby to get a win. I hope so. I'll be there. Fingers crossed. I'm going to go Boro 2, Derby County 0, and a clean sheet for the Boroughs. So let me know your thoughts, feelings and predictions for this one in the comments section below, whether you're a Boro fan, Derby fan or neutral. Do let me know your thoughts below. As always, if you've enjoyed the video, do hit a like on the video and subscribe for much more football content on the channel. We preview and review every Boro game here on the channel, of course. And if you'd rather listen to these videos on the go, as always, there are links in the description for you to listen to these over on your chosen podcast provider. But until next time, guys, I'll be back on Saturday night, probably, to review, hopefully, a Boro win. Hopefully I'm not sat back here steaming with my head on Mars after Boro throwing away a really big opportunity at home against a poor side, as we have done many times this season, let's be honest. So I'll see you guys then, but until then, take care, and I'll see you all in the next one.